What's going on, guys? Lucas Jensen here with the Forward Thinking Podcast. Today, I got a super excited one. I got my good buddy, friend, colleague, partner, Micah from Search, Click, Grow. And this one's going to be extremely excited because Mike is very well known in the industry. Some of you guys have probably seen him in the painting contractors group. Some of you guys are probably working with him, or some of you are just really wanting to work with him. So this is going to be a podcast where you get all the information you need about Search, Click, Grow. You get some more information about Micah and his team, and we'll take it from there. So awesome, Micah. I'm excited to have you on.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me, dude. I really enjoy it, man. I always have fun every time we chat, man. It's great. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely, dude. So we share a few clients. You build the websites. You do the PPC. Do you do some SEO as well?
Yeah. SEO is a pretty commonly misunderstood thing. It's one of those like buzzwords that everyone gets wrong. SEO means search engine optimization. So to optimize for anything, it just means to make that thing good for the intent, right? You can optimize your laundry process. I don't really care what it is, right? But to optimize for Google search or Bing search, any search engines, you need a couple basic things. You need a good website with good content. You should have good online directories, Facebook, Yellow Pages, Google Business Profile, things like that. And then you typically need a content strategy, like posting blogs, social media, things like that on an ongoing basis, because Google doesn't like just one-time content. They want ongoing content. And then the last thing that most people don't know about is they actually want links. So like easy way to describe it is it's almost like a popularity contest in high school. The more votes you get, the better you are. So the more links from other websites linking to your website, the stronger your SEO gets. That's just some of the factors, but that's the basic formula for SEO. So if we build a website, just a website, we do everything except the things that are ongoing. Like we can't do ongoing content if we're not an ongoing relationship. We can't do ongoing links if we're not an ongoing relationship. But we give you the on-page SEO and the on-page content, that initial part that needs to be there no matter what.
Got you. And do you build out separate landing pages for like each specific location? Like if someone has, for example, in Salt Lake City, Utah, where there's like different little neighborhoods in those areas that the client would want to hit, would you build out specific landing pages for each of those areas, or what would that look like?
Yes, we do. And the reason why we do it is based on search behavior. So we've talked about before, like my job isn't to do what's in my best interest or my client's best interest, it's really think about the user. So it's not me, it's not my client, it's what their end client is going to do. And so we have to be a student of that behavior. And I know you do on Facebook ads too. We have to know what they do, what they like, what they don't like in order to get the results that we want, right? So we're essentially influencing people. Well, the first thing that we need to know is their core behaviors. When someone goes to Google to look for a search, a local search, there's one of three things that they're going to do. Number one is they're going to type in a very, very broad keyword: paint contractor, painter, residential house painter, something like that. And if you think about the term, like they're like paint contractor, that term alone being broad, you have no idea what they want. No clue. You don't know if they want to be a paint contractor, hire a paint contractor, no pricing for paint contractors, get paint from a paint store for a paint contractor. It's too broad. You have zero clue. But that's where most of the searches are. It's extremely broad. Those are the great pages to optimize your home page, your about page, and things like that. That's where those pages come in, is optimizing for the extremely broad search. So that's why those pages exist, really, if you're strategic about it, is to try to capture the paint contractor type keywords. The second type is when someone will type in what they want more specifically, not just paint contractor, cabinet painter, interior painter. So they're telling you what they want at a more specific level. And that's where you get service pages. You have like a big mistake that website people will make, especially DIYers, is they just create one page for services. That's not enough, because for the person that's typing in painter services, sure, it matches, it's fine. But what about the person that's typing in cabinet painter or epoxy floor painter or interior painter? It's not enough. It's not powerful enough. So you create like a main services page and then a drop down page for every subservice. Every time. It's a virtual requirement to rank reasonably well. Then the third part is the part that you're talking about. The third search behavior is when someone types in the broad version of what they want, but they type a specific location. So they'll go back to a broad keyword, but they'll type in where they want it. So like painter near me, painter in Atlanta, Atlanta painter, and it replaced Atlanta with whatever city, but they're telling you what they want. Google understands that near me or in my area, they know where you are, so you can replace that with your city. So like I live in Jacksonville, Florida. If I type in painter near me, I'll get the same results as if I type in painter Jacksonville. It's effectively the same because Google knows where you are based on your IP address. But either one of those are a broad keyword with a location. So we got broad is number 1, specific is number 2, and broad with location is number 3. So that's the long way of answering, yes, we need to do that. And if anyone's doing it themselves, they should be too, because someone's going to type in, like, let's say I live in Jacksonville. So I'd be like painter Jacksonville. But then most cities have suburbs. So for my area, I've got like, I do one for the whole city, but I got a north side, a south side, a west side, a beaches, a downtown, and the different. So now I don't want to go so granular where I have one for like a stoplight area of town. That's too niched. It's too nuanced. You'd end up with hundreds and hundreds of these location pages, and that's not beneficial. But what is beneficial is, let's say you've got 3, 5, 10 sub areas in the area that you do. You should have a breakdown for every single one of those pages. So we created an area page and then one. Oh yeah, there is a such thing as too much, 100%. So the threshold, and I was chatting with a buddy of ours that we know. I'm not going to name him. He might comment on this later, but I was talking with him the other day. He created 280 of these location pages, something like that. I don't remember the exact number. Over 200. And it was crazy. So it was like 280 something, right? I looked up his state. And I looked up on Google. I typed in the census, tried to figure out how many cities were in there. It's like 220. He created more location pages than there were towns in his entire state. So clearly, there's a couple problems there. Number one is there's just more that you're at that point. You're past the towns and you're going to the stoplights, and you don't need to be that nuanced, right? So like even in like downtown of my area, like Jacksonville downtown, there's different sub-sides of downtown. I do not need to go that granular. That's way too much. The second part and the most critical part is Google hates duplicate content, hates it. Now there's a few parts that are allowed to be duplicate, like your header is going to be on every page. Your footer with all your copyright and quick links and stuff will be on every page. If you have sidebars on your page, maybe there'll be some sidebars on pages. Those are fine. And you may have a couple areas like a CTA, like a button with like a phone call, some stuff. But if every page is like 100% the same, except the only thing you change is like, painter Jacksonville, painter beaches, painter this, and that's the only thing that changes on that site, and you duplicate that 200 times, Google's like, dude, 99% of that page is the same crap. Only thing you're changing is the headline. And you'll get very, very steep duplicate content penalties, and your SEO will go down the toilet. It's really, really a bad idea. So what you want to do is create as many location pages that you can, provided that it's a true town, not a sub town. And 2, that you actually put unique content on every one of those pages. You cannot copy and paste from the other pages. They need to be unique, except for the known common areas. And that's one of the tough parts is like when you have a website that's like 10 pages, it's pretty easy to be unique. You have a website that's 200 pages, it's a whole lot harder to be unique, exponentially harder to not repeat yourself. You know what I mean? Like try to write 200 pages that are 500 to 1,000 words each and not repeat anything you've already said. That's extremely difficult. So what we found is that most contractors, painters and other contractors, the magic number tends to be somewhere between 10 and 40 pages, give or take. It's very, very infrequent that websites with 100 plus actually do well. They normally do not. There's some exceptions, but most of them do not do well. So we want to do that but not cross the like insanity threshold of those location pages.
How many websites would you say you've developed in your entire career, or your team has developed collectively?
Collectively, tens of thousands. Personally, well over 1,000. So I've been doing this. I was in the Air Force from 2000 to 2006, and my job was I was on a maintenance supervisor, basically on airplanes. And so my job was like electrics and pneumatics and guidance systems and structures. Basically, I was like the superintendent of a house. I was like that for planes. So I had to I basically got to 2-year tech degree for aircraft maintenance and learned all sorts of cool stuff. And I got out and I just like wanted to keep in tech, but I wanted to do something more creative. So I tried to find something that was like a balance of like really technical and creative, because planes aren't creative. They're very technical, but they're not creative too. You can't create something. You got really, really rigid things. So I find that marketing is a fun balance of having some liberties of being creative, but it also has lots of data, lots of science, lots of numbers, lots of, provable stuff. And so I just kind of stumbled in that, and I've been in that since. So I've been full-time since 2006 when I got out in marketing. So since that time, first few years, a few websites a year, nothing super crazy. But I mean, at this point, dude, I mean, we're building more than one website a week, every week, and have been for years. So I think this week we launched 4 or 5 websites. Last week was about the same. Crazy. So you repeat that every week. We're doing hundreds of websites a year across a very small, quality team. It's pretty awesome.
And to elaborate on that, the beautiful thing, the thing I admire the most about what Micha does is it's not templates. You look at one website, you look at the other, you can't tell it was made by the same developer, So all of Micha's websites are custom built, which is a beautiful thing. There's no, copy paste coming in there. I'm sure you have some proven, systems and things like that, or formulas for the website, which I would love to pick your brain about. But for sure, that's something that I want to elaborate on is he's doing that many websites in a week, and they're all custom.
Every single one of them. Yeah. So it's interesting. We have a template that we start with in a sense. I'm going to use that word loosely. When most people think of a website template, it's like a visual framework. It's like, here's the logo, here's this, here's this. Our template is a code template. There is 0 visual or content decisions made in that template. All that we have is a folder with all the code that we start from. And we normally will custom code some stuff on top of that. But that code has like, here's our form system, here's this system. You know what I mean? It's a basic framework. 0 content decisions are made at that template level, and 0 visual decisions are made at that level. Every single site is 100% custom visually designed, and 100% words are custom made. 100% every single time. Nothing is borrowed ever. If I ever see one of my team members borrowing something from someone, I'm like, no, start over, do it again. Yeah. You know what I mean? You will find repeats. I think it was what you were talking about. Like, there's some things that we know that are going to work. Like you do the same with your ads. Like, every one of your ads is different, but you know that there's certain general things that you should and should not do.
Formats and structures or things like that have worked in the past that we're replicating that over. It 100%. Looks different, but it comes down to very similar foundation, which is exactly. Yeah,
exactly. So we call them frameworks versus templates. You know what I mean? Like, we have a framework for what needs to be on a page. We actually on our website, we have a free download of this, like anatomy of a blog, anatomy of a landing page, and it actually talks about what needs to go where in what order to make a successful page. And different pages are a little different. Like, a service page is a little different than a location page, is a little different than a blog page, a little different than a home page, but there's some generalities. And again, that goes back to users. What are they thinking in what order? And so one of the things that's really interesting to me about marketing in general is the micro decisions. A lot of people think that like, I turn on marketing and someone decides to convert as a lead, whether it be Facebook or Google, it's irrelevant. A lot of people think I just make this ad and someone sees it and they convert. That's not actually what happens. There's about 100 little tiny decisions that happen between that and the person that's watching that's mind, right? Like, did it capture their attention? Yes. Did they decide to read a headline? Yes or no? Did they decide to click and learn more? Yes or no? They get to a web page. Did they scroll down? Like, there's all these little things. There's a ton of these little micro decisions. And so we can't just think about, I need a lead. We have to think about, I need to write X in a headline so that they actually click it. And then when they click it, I need to show why, so it actually capture their attention and have their attention for more than 3 seconds. Now that I have their attention for more than 3 seconds, I need to say A, B, and C so that they know this and trust this and believe this. And then once that's done, then I can convince them to scroll down and learn something else. And the process repeats over and over and over again with these little tiny micro decisions. And it's tough to think about like at that nuanced level. But if you just follow like a proven format on what has worked before, even if you don't understand the nuance of it, you just go, okay, we need to go A and then B and then C and then D. You'll effectively get to the same place,
Absolutely. And how long does it take you to like have liftoff with a website? Like from authorization by the client all the way up to like
2 weeks, which is incredible.
2 weeks for a custom website?
2 weeks. And actually half of that is planning. Once our team actually starts building it, we build a website in 1 week. It's ridiculously fast.
Dude,
But again,
dang.
it's insane processes, right? We've done so many thousands. Dude, the first one probably took me 3 months, you know, and more. And then we had failures and repeats and, you know, it's just repetition. You do something enough, you get really quick at it. And really what it boils down to is we know when part of it is knowing when to start. We know that I need information A, B, C, D, E from the client before I ever even pass it off to my developer team. Like if I get them started and they don't have everything they need, they're going to start and stop and start and stop and start and stop, you know, and that's not effective for anybody. I make sure that everything that they need is done when they start. And if I don't, then I failed, you know, but I get all the stuff. We've got questionnaires and presets on the things that we need to know. Once we have that, 2 weeks. It's once we start, it's 2 weeks. Most of the time we have a waiting list. We typically have a wait anywhere from 30 to 90 days to even start. But once we actually start, 2 weeks and it's done.
And what does like, when you get new clients, typically where do they come from? Not like what source, but like, are they DIYers? Do they not have a website? Do they have like a previous web developer? What's the kind of split ratio there between like the people that you're working with?
I would say that most of the people that I work with, probably 80 to 90%, are, and I know you've experienced the same, have people that have been screwed over by another agency. I had a controversial social post about a year ago in some of our same groups, and I think you probably saw it too. And I made a comment that I think I phrased a little bit incorrectly, but I still mean it, and I'll expand on it. I talked about how there's a bunch of young people in the industry that don't know what they're doing. And you're younger than me and you know what you're doing. I'm not talking about that, right? There are plenty of people that are 18 years old that are rock stars, right? It's not actually about age. What it is about time and what they do. How much time did they actually spend doing the thing that they claim to be an expert on? So it's not really about age, more of experience. There are 40-year-olds that just started yesterday that don't know what they're doing. So what we've seen with a lot of it exploded in COVID because a lot of people lost jobs, and a lot of these people that lost jobs, maybe they were relatively tech savvy and they watched an Instagram video on how to start an agency, and then tomorrow they're an expert. You know what I mean? And there was an explosion of thousands of these, and it's just it kills me because these people make promises that they can't uphold to. They have unrealistic timelines. They have never built more than a couple websites in their life, or a couple of Facebook. There's Facebook ad guys that do the same. You know, they've launched 2 campaigns and they pretend they're an expert. That's you know, that's not enough. And so these overnight experts, I think, are ruining the industry. And the hard part is, from the customer side, is they don't know the difference. At the front side, I have a pretty website. You can get on a phone call and talk to me. I'm going to say the same buzzwords that the next guy will. So how do we differentiate between talking about Google and SEO and Facebook ads and all these things versus the next guy? And it's very difficult, you know, very openly. It's very difficult to make the decision to choose the right agency. It's very easy to choose a bad one. And I think the kicker there is longevity. You should hire someone that's been doing this for longer than a year. You know, if you've only been doing this 12 months, 6 months, it's probably not a good choice to hire them, you know. I'm seeing that generally. It doesn't mean that there's someone that just started tomorrow. Maybe there's exceptions, because there's some people, there's a guy I know that was working, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get in drama, but there was a guy that broke away from another agency. He was doing operations. Guy knows his stuff, been doing it for years. Brand new company, little different, right? Because he has years of experience and he just started a new LLC. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the person that just went to YouTube University last week and is now claiming to be an expert. That person should not be hired. And that person, frankly, should have a little more ethics. That's where I see 90% of our clients come from, is the people that have hired someone like that they really don't know what they're doing. They spent thousands to multiple thousands of dollars on something, got really bad results, and then they're looking for someone else, and then they start asking friends, and then they get recommendations for me, and then we talk. That's where I see the most. And I think it's a huge problem. I think it's something that, you know, we're trying to make better, you know, with education resources. And I know you do the same. That's part of the reason you have this podcast. Part of the reason I have a Facebook group and podcast myself is I think educating our clients is like one of the things I think we need to do more of, you know, without intent of selling them. You know what I mean? I want to educate everyone I talk to, regardless of whether they hire me or not. I just want to point them in the right direction. I don't want to see them make a bad choice, but but I'm not the only good choice. You know what I mean? I don't need to be high pressure to do that. My work speaks for itself, and so does yours, you know? But I think the thing that really kills me, it crushes me, is I have multiple phone calls a day where someone is locked into a contract. They got their website stolen, their domain stolen, their Facebook ad. I talked to a client yesterday. Get this: website not handed over by his agency, domain not handed over by his old agency, Facebook ad account literally was on speakerphone, and they're calling this Facebook ad account and asking to get access. And they're just like, oh no, it's in our business manager. We can't give you access. Oh, that's such BS. And you know it. Like, you can give permission. They just didn't want to. And so they literally took all their assets because this client wasn't getting results and wanted to leave one agency and come to us. And they literally they're deleting all their stuff. They're getting nothing. And that is super common and really, really disrespectful and not an ethical way to run a business.
Totally agree. Yeah. And there are so many good options out there, you know, but there's just more bad ones too. And the same thing comes out into the contracting field. Is there's so many, you know, painters out there or business owners out there that aren't running their business, you know, with integrity. Right. And that's reflecting on other people. It's like, oh man, I hired this guy and he messed me over. How do I know you're not going to?
Then they have to have a sales process and objections that overcomes it on their end.
Exactly.
You know?
Even though they did nothing wrong, they ran the business with full integrity and accountability, but it was just the wrongdoings of someone else within their field that kind of disrupted that. So
I think what's interesting is it's actually not just marketing. It's not contracting. It's really any industry. I mean, financial advisors, you know, insurance agents, you name it. Every industry has a bunch of people that are bad at what they do and don't operate with integrity, and a very small amount of people that are very good at what they do and operate with integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Exactly. That's why we're
here. Love that, man. So majority of the people that you work with have worked with other agencies in the past. When it comes to DIYers, how do you get them to swing over to you? Because we have so many people that are like, oh, I could just build a website on Wix in 3 hours, but it's like you get what you give, you know what I mean? And I think that's something it's been made so accessible for people, which is such a beautiful thing. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the right thing for someone's business. I think that depends on the level of the business. But how do you kind of talk people over from DIY into kind of a DFY?
Short answer is I don't push. You know, I want to educate, not persuade. You know what I mean? Like, I think persuasion is an interesting skill, and I consider myself a very high level persuasion expert. That is sales and marketing. That's what we do, is we convince people to do things through our stuff. And I think you have to have good ethics when you have those skills. You know what I mean? You can definitely I could convince a lot of people to pay me money for things, and it might not even be the right fit for them. So the first thing I want to really do is make sure that they actually are a good fit for Done For You, because not all of them are. Maybe they don't have the budget. They're not there yet. And maybe a Wix site is actually the right move. It won't be the right move forever. At some point, they really should hire and get someone that knows what they're doing to do it, but it might not be the right fit right now. And so that's the biggest thing, is I want to identify, is it the right time for you now? And there's a few moving parts in that, budget being a big one, but also the goals being a big one. I just got off a call with a guy that he's around 400, 500,000 a year and has no intentions of going bigger. It's debatable whether it's worth it. It's debatable, you know, maybe it is. I'll definitely make his website better. I think that we could make his quality of clients go up. He doesn't want the number of clients to go up though. You know what I mean? So now if we made a little bit better marketing, he'd get a few more choices, but he doesn't want more clients. He doesn't want to scale. So, you know, there's times and place where it is right and it's not. I also like to, we work really hard on creating client-side education, because that person that's at this level that's not ready for me, I can at least guide them into making that Wix website, the DIY thing. I can at least give them some guidance and make it a little bit better, so that phase one level that they're at is at least kind of a 1.5 or 1.2. You know what I mean? It's a little bit better than complete DIY. And then when they're ready, we're there willing to help. When someone is actually ready to move over, I mean, at that point, it's really just, you know, is this in your budget? Is it going to meet the goals that you have? And what timeline makes sense for you versus me? And can we make that work? And normally at that point, it's normally a yes across the board, you know.
Beautiful. Love that, man. It's a very, interesting thing that people have the potential to have a big business, but they're just happy where they are. And you can't feel anything but I guess gratitude towards that, because it's just like you do have these big ambitious people that are always going, the red line and they're pushing from 100,000 one year to 1 million the next. And that's great. There's the room for that, but there's also the people that are comfortable with that $450,000 revenue.
You know what I
all they want to do
find?
is just optimize that.
I have found that everyone that's ever told me they don't want to grow, it's always the same reason. No exceptions, zero exceptions. It's always the management of the team. That's the limiting factor. And the guy today said the same thing. He's like, I had the 20, 30 person crew with multiple trucks and, blah, 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 blah. And it was too stressful. I didn't like managing that team. And he said, but I went down to one crew, making less, but profit margins are higher. And more importantly, my stress level is lower. Okay, cool. I think that's one way to solve it, but there's other ways to solve it too. You can bring in a project manager or a crew lead, or, you know what I mean? Like there's other ways to handle that. I think it's interesting that everyone I've ever talked to that doesn't want to scale, and there's probably other reasons, but I mean, I can think of 20 off the top of my head, and they always said the same thing. It's always about the team. It's not that they don't want more money. It's not that they don't want more jobs. It's not that managing a few more clients isn't there. It's always the managing their team and the team dynamics and the drama that comes with having more employees versus less employees. And so I wonder if that's like some personality traits in common. I wonder if it's maybe something they could learn and overcome, or maybe if they don't want to learn and overcome it, maybe it's something they could hire to overcome. You know what I mean? Like if you're not great at managing people, hire someone that is, and you can still get past that, and you could still elevate your business. And you're just not the person that's managing those people.
You put the burden of that stress on the person that's going to be able to manage that better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, think about all large corporations. They all do the same thing. You think Elon Musk is managing hiring and managing teams and time off and when someone doesn't show up to work? Absolutely not. There's people in place for those things, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, and I think, when you're kind of in that small to middle range, like as you're tearing up, you don't yet have enough money to hire that person. And so you start absorbing those roles, and then it gets stressful. And then these people want to downgrade because it's stressful. But I think like once you get that stressful point, it's the time to hire. Then you can keep moving and reduce your stress. You're buying back your time,
Yeah. And I think like that aligns perfectly with a quote I shared on Facebook, like, I don't know, a couple days ago. I don't know if you saw it, but I've been reading a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read it?
It's one of my favorites. I read it.
So good.
I read it twice a year, every year, and have for the last 6 or so years. Like, I mean, I've read it a lot. I can almost quote it. It's a really great book.
Yeah, it's such a good book, man. And he has a quote. It's, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
Correct.
And he has like a metaphor with that. It's like everybody at the start of the line of a 100-meter race has the exact same goal, the exact same goal in mind, which is to win, right? So it's not the person who has the best goal, because everybody has the same goal. It's the person who has the best systems in order or in preparation for it, right? So
I would add one thing to that it's the systems and knowledge. I firmly believe that to be good at something, you need two things. You need great systems and processes, but you also need the education that goes along with it. Because if I give you a system, but you didn't know the nuance, you wouldn't know it. If you had a lot of education, but you didn't have the systems, both of them would still fail. I think it's a 99% accurate quote. I think that one amendment for me makes it a little more accurate.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And later in the book, he talks about that. Like, it's just in that quote, he omits that. I'm familiar with that quote.
Yeah.
And I believe it. You can see it anywhere. There's another quote that I heard that says the same thing. I forget who wrote it, and it's not him. It's not James Clear. It says that awards are won in the practice room, and they're just handed out at the competition. And it means the same thing. It's the preparation that we do behind the scenes is what ultimately makes us successful or not. When I'm doing my marketing, my education and my systems are already done. When I'm building a website, I'm relying on the systems and educations that I have. If I'm playing darts, it's about the practice that I put into it before. You know what I mean? It's not what I do that day, because you're right. Once we're all at that starting line, we all want the same thing. We all want to win.
Yeah.
And it's only the person that had more knowledge and more systems that's going to win.
100%. 100%. So, dude, I love that. First of all, I love that. That is absolutely, I grew up playing sports. I'm an extremely competitive. I'm in Canada, right? So it was hockey.
Football, hockey. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ice hockey in the winter, and then I did soccer in the summer, just because
Okay.
we can't really play hockey all year round.
Yeah.
But then basically I wanted to focus just on the one thing that I enjoyed more, which was hockey. So I stopped playing soccer, and then I pursued hockey full time, doing that, and then I stopped around last year of midget, which is like around when I was like 18, 19.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you? Did you play sports growing up?
Yeah, I did. I did a few. So I played baseball from like T-ball all the way through high school.
Nice.
I didn't go past that, but I played it until I think actually not all the way through high school. It was like 10th grade year I stopped. I had some conflicts with some other things. I did track and field in middle school and first year high school. I did a relay race and I did high jump. Again, didn't go too far with that, but I played lots of sports. Never did football, never did soccer. Baseball and track were the big ones for me.
Nice.
And then what prompted me to stop baseball in high school was I grew up as a musician too. And then in high school, there was like, okay, I could make this varsity band or I could make this varsity baseball team. And I had skills. I was accepted to both, but the schedules conflicted and I had to pick one or the other. Could not do them both. I chose music. So, it's what I did. So I finished out high school doing, the kind of the marching band kind of thing, which is still very athletic. It's extremely athletic. People pass out from that all the time. You don't realize that carrying an instrument, marching around, straight body, hot summer days, kind of geeky, looks kind of dorky, but man, is it physically, it is intense. Like I had a 6-pack at the time and I didn't do sit-ups. Because you're always trying to hold this body up. And there's this, I was a percussionist. I had this drum that weighed 60 pounds trying to pull me down. And you got to hold this tight core. Like it's almost like females have it when they're pregnant, like this big weight that's like pulling you down. And the muscles that you have to build to do that are actually pretty tough. It's harder than it looks.
Well, for sure. I mean, sore back
after, every sport is harder than it looks, really, though. All of them are.
Yeah. But I think that's something that's allowed me to kind of accelerate in business, is just a natural competitiveness growing up.
Yeah.
I grew up with an older brother. So
nice.
Always trying to keep up to him. He was 3 years older, always trying to keep up and, get included in his friend group and all that stuff, just trying to push. I skipped a grade when I was younger. So I was always, I graduated high school at 15. Right. So trying to keep up to like 17-year-olds in terms of like education, like it pushes you, you know, and that's something that's allowed me to kind of grow and allow my business to grow. Is I'm like finding the next thing that I could compete on, whether that's client retention or like client results or whatever. I'm just trying to be like, get better and better and better and better, and
I love it.
Yeah. I find we got pretty similar beginnings, man. The sports, you were in the Air Force. I was in Boy Scouts. We were both in marketing.
Yep, both in marketing. Yep, yeah. It is interesting. I love that we have so much in common. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you're in Jacksonville. That's awesome, man. Were you born and raised there?
So I was. My parents were military. It's probably the reason I wanted to do one enlistment. When I went in the military, I knew I wasn't going to do more than one. I went in for one enlistment. I was born on Camp Lejeune, which is in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's a Navy base. My dad was a corpsman, which is a Navy field medic, basically like an EMT, but military EMT, right? So he was just like, it wasn't a doctor, but he was an EMT, right? And he had to, all the life-saving skills that go along with that. But he was assigned to a special forces helicopter unit, and that was in Camp Lejeune. And he got switched over to a different helicopter unit here in Jacksonville, Florida. So I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, then got restationed when I was 7 to Jacksonville, Florida. There's a lot of Jacksonvilles in this country, but born in North Carolina, then moved to Florida. And then, I was in the middle of first grade when we moved. So I had like kindergarten and half of first grade in North Carolina. Then the second half of first grade and on was all here in the Jacksonville area. Then I was in the Air Force and moved out. I was gone for a while. And then about 10 years later, I came back. And wife, having kids and all that stuff, wanted to be close to grandparents and all that good stuff. So decided to move back home for that.
Yeah, I love that. How many kids do you have?
So I have 2, a 21-year-old and a 12-year-old, pretty wide gap. But yeah, Kids are super fun. Keep you on your toes. That's for sure.
I love that. Does your 21-year-old, is he, does he show any interest in like web dev and stuff like that?
No, but he's an amazing visual artist. So he's trying to get into a career in basic illustrations. I'll send some stuff your way sometime. It's actually really cool. It does really high end, like pen, marker, and a bunch of and digital tablet type illustrations. He's done comics and intricate pen work and all this stuff. So everything from like technical illustration down to anime and a bunch of stuff in between. And I don't even fully understand the names of all the different artistic styles, but I know it's just loosely in illustrations. Mm-hmm. And so he was trying to get into SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, which is one of the best art schools in the country. Very, very, very difficult school to make. He did not quite get it. But he's still pursuing a degree that way. So he's doing some technical education and drafting and some other things and trying to go that route. So visual arts, definitely there. Doesn't really have any indications that he wants to do anything marketing or anything. I think the thing that keeps me here is like, I mean, I like some of the visual stuff, but the thing that really gets me like excited is the decision-making stuff. That's my geek out. Like I really enjoy like playing with like colors and words on a page that makes someone make a different decision. I find it highly fascinating. You know what I mean? In a video, you could say X or say Y and you make someone have a completely different reaction. That's fascinating, you know? And so that part of persuasion is what keeps me in the game. And other team members are more on the visual side than me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. How big's your team now, if you don't mind me asking?
About 10 people. Yeah. It's pretty small. Really, really small. We have 6 people that are like full-time in it every day, W-2 kind of people. Nice. We have several freelancers that are part-time to semi-part-time, and we're expanding. So what's really cool is like, you think about like, it's a really small team. There's some agencies out there that have 20, 30, 40, 50 people out there, and we're crushing their results. You know what I mean? Like, there's a pros and cons to being big and small, but I actually built a very large agency years ago. Much bigger than the one I have today. And very much like some of the painters, I realized that the level of where we were was above where I wanted to be. And it wasn't so much about the team. I enjoyed the team. We had like a 5,000 square foot space. We had a video studio, dozens of employees. Like it was a big operation. Yeah. We had a video production unit at the time. Did stuff for like History Channel and Nat Geo and Shark Tank, and like we had legit like on TV video stuff. Worked with multiple Fortune 500 companies. I worked with GE, Vistacon, and several others. So I had contracts working with a bunch of Fortune 500 companies. Worked with a few insurance companies like Allstate and a few others. So we worked with some very, very, very large corporations. And one of the things that I found was that like, working with that Fortune 500 level company allowed me to learn some things that I would never, ever know if I had only worked with painters. So it's a huge, huge skill. I learned some things on $1 million campaigns, multi-million dollar campaigns. You'll never figure out on a $2,000 a month campaign. Mm-hmm. Never. You know what I mean? So I got to test things that most marketers can't, because I had campaigns that were spending $100,000, $500,000 a month. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's things that you learn on that scale that you can't figure out at $500 a month on Google Ads or Facebook ads.
Yeah.
And so what's cool about that is, you know, you start to understand some psychology stuff from that you can pull back and still utilize on the smaller stuff. But what got me away from the big agency stuff versus the smaller niche agency where I'm at now wasn't the team. I love the team. I like having a big team, and we're actually we're hiring soon, and we're going to, scale up a little bit. What I didn't like is I didn't like the connection working with the Fortune 500 companies. There's a lot more money. It's more profit. Don't get me wrong. I mean, way more money than I'm making now, but I didn't like the client. That was what drove me from that. And then, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, we started this company because we wanted to work with smaller companies. We wanted to work with the small to medium, not the medium to Fortune 500. Mm-hmm. Like when you work with the big companies, every decision you make has to go through a C-suite level vote, has to go through legal. A small decision on a website goes through 3 months worth of approvals before you can ever even make it. That's dumb. It's really dumb, you know? And it's like, dude, like I just got this test result from ads. I know that if I change X to Y, you're going to get better value. Can I do it? Nope. These 10 people have to vote on it, and it takes like 3 months. It's just dumb. And so I didn't like that. And also, like, the team members that you're working with are always changing because you're not working with a business owner. You know what I mean? You're working with a giant corporation.
Yeah.
And that's just a whole lot different. I like working with the individual business owners, knowing that when we do something positive, and I know you get the same thing, when we change a business that's struggling to all of a sudden getting massive lead flow, teaching them how to nurture. I'm not sure where that little thumbs up. Teaching them how to nurture and close more deals. And all of a sudden, between the marketing that we do and the skills that we help them develop, or maybe they've already developed them, all of a sudden they're closing at a 2, 4, 10x rate. Now, all of a sudden, what does that mean? That means college funds for their kids. That means freedom of lifestyle. That's an impact that I enjoy helping people achieve. And you don't get that working with Fortune 500 companies. You know?
The things you do, the small tweaks you do is extremely impactful. Even if it's decreasing, cost per lead by 10% in 1 month, that's that much more leads that they're getting. Right. So it makes a huge difference. And I love it. I genuinely love it. I know never
you're great at it, dude. Great at it. I love seeing the results that you do for the clients that we have in common. It's just fantastic. It's awesome. I think you're, very much like the instant expert that we talked about a minute ago. Like, there's so many people that watched a couple of tutorials on Facebook ads yesterday, and they're pretending like they're experts today. And then tens of thousands of dollars later, they're not generating anything for their clients. And it just sucks. You're definitely the real deal, and you know what you're doing. You got some great systems, and I love seeing it. It's awesome.
Right back at you, dude. Right back at you. I remember, did you blew me away the first time we chatted, and you were saying like, how many negative keywords do you have again?
Yeah.
So your PPC campaigns.
Yeah. So, I mean, our list is at least 1,000, depends on exactly what campaign. And for those that don't know what a negative keyword is, and it doesn't apply to SEO, but for ads, you have a positive keyword. It's just called keywords. And that's the keyword that you're trying to target. Let's say like painter near me. That might be a positive keyword that you're trying to do. But someone might, because of match types and Google allows synonyms, painter near me might match with like paint store near me. That can happen, right? All of a sudden, your intended keyword is matching for directions to a Sherwin-Williams store, and you just paid $20 for that click. That's not what you want. So the way to circumvent that is you have to create a negative keyword list that subtracts all of it. It's easiest way that I describe it is like a Venn diagram. We've all seen like the circles that intersect with another circle. So my circle is my keyword, but then the rest of the area is all the other stuff that it matches with on accident that we don't necessarily want it to. And then my negative keywords come in and subtract, almost like Swiss cheese. They're pulling out the sections that I don't want. And what's left is the actual keyword and all of its variants that I want, minus the variants that I don't want. And that's one of the things that I see a lot of people just don't know. A lot of people don't even know it's there. There's ad agencies, big ad agencies in this space that don't use it. I've inherited dozens of ad accounts from very large agencies that have no negative keywords at all, and it's dumb. You need to use it because of synonyms and how Google treats keywords. 20 years ago, it was like all about exact match. Like if I typed in paint contractor in Atlanta, like that was the keyword. You had to put it on the page exactly. Like the URL had to match it. Everything was exact. And Google was really bad at synonyms and intent. But Google has gotten really, really, really evolved. And they not only understand like basic synonyms, they can also understand completely contextually different phrases. Like you could say none of those 4 words and still rank for something that means those same 4 words. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like residential, let's say a paint contractor near me could be like residential painter in my area. I didn't use any of the same 4 words and still means the same thing. Google's that smart now. So they understand intent of the keyword, not just the actual word. But the way they go bad, remember we talked about those 3 keyword types, like you get the really, really specific ones, you also have the really broad ones. Where it gets really messed up is if you type in paint contractor, again, I don't know what you want. I don't know what the rest of the intent is. Do you want to become a paint contractor? You want to hire one? Are you trying to figure out who's in town? Like you don't know. And Google doesn't either. That term is not specific enough. Now, if you type in something like who's the best paint contractor in Ann Arbor, Michigan, well, that's really specific. I know what you want. Google knows what you want, and they're going to deliver it. But when you type in broad 2-3 word terms, they don't know what you want. And so that's where negative keywords come in. You have to use them. Our standard SOP has about 1,000, and we train from there and add more as necessary for local keywords. So like we know
Powerful,
that like,
dude. That's so powerful.
well, I think about like the painter near me can actually match with Sherwin-Williams near me.
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
not
Or an arts and crafts store, or
yeah. We have this. There's a franchise business. I forget what it's called. It's like one of those things where like couples go and they get like the little pre-done like paint kit, and you all sit there and drink wine and paint. I forget the name of it, but there's companies like that. It'll match with that stuff. And all you're getting like this oil paint by numbers for couples, and that's not what you want either. And so what we have to do is just look at the data and subtract all that stuff so that what we're left with is actually the keywords that you want. Because if you're spending $5, $10 a click on keywords that you don't want, it does not take very long for you to spend hundreds of dollars before you get a lead. But if you're spending money on the keywords you actually want, you'll get leads $25 to $100, give or take, depending on where you live. And that's a normal range, right? We see something in that range. We're like, okay, cool. We did our job. Yeah. We see cost per conversions that are 200, 300, 400, 500. The worst I've ever seen was like $800 a lead.
Holy smokes, dude.
It's like, how can you survive on that? Like, even if you closed 1 for 1, this $800 cost per acquisition, you know what I mean?
Still
like,
hefty. Yeah.
It's still hefty. It's really hefty. Now, if you knew you were closing $8,000 jobs every time, 10%, it would be understandable, but not every job's $8,000. You might get a $2,000 paint job for an $800 cost per lead. That's not worth even doing. I was looking at a campaign yesterday with somebody, and they spent like, and it was a new client coming in, so I haven't fixed anything yet. I just looked at the initial data. Last month, it was like $1,900 in Google Ads spent. They brought in $1,600 in work for the negative $300. So it's that's not good. That's not what you want.
Something's not right there.
There's solutions to fix it, man. Whether you're DIY or you're hiring someone like me or you, there are solutions to these problems.
Yeah.
What sucks is when you just like turn it on and never touch it and expect it to work. That doesn't work. You got to do a little bit more than that.
Yeah. Do you have campaigns though that you've done all the optimizations for, and it's just pumping, and you just don't touch it at all, like for like a few months?
I have no campaigns that we don't touch, but there are some campaigns that are running so well that we barely touch them.
Yeah.
So when I left the Air Force in 2006, I met a guy. His name is Brian Ruiz. He owns a company called First Coast Painting and More. And what's interesting is he grew up in Miami and I grew up in Jacksonville. But when he left the Air Force, he decided to move to my hometown. He's literally like 20 minutes away from me right now. And he's my longest paint contractor client that I've had. I've been running his campaign for years. His average Google ad lead is between $25 and $30. And I touch his campaign. I look at it once a month, but I haven't had to do anything for a long time. It's been running for years though. It's so optimized for his area. His website is really good. His ad campaign is really good. It's so dialed in. We look at it once a month, but we probably make tweaks to it once every 3 months, if that. Normally it's just upping and downing the budget based on seasonality.
Yeah. That's something I've found too, is like if the water fountain works, don't start messing with the pipes, right? So if something's working, sometimes
leave it alone.
Exactly. Even if like for Facebook ads, it's a little bit different because it's
somewhat similar. There's some similarities and differences. Like we have the same thing. If it's working, we don't touch it because you don't want to. We only really mess with things when it's something's not right yet. Yeah. The algorithms definitely are a bit different though.
Yeah, and the main kind of key component there is that creative, right? Like, for example, like we've had clients that they've been like getting like $15 cost per leads, and they're just racking in the estimates and the appointments, and amazing. And it's like we haven't touched that campaign for like 3 months. But then they would come to us and they're like, yeah, can we change things up? Like, can we like do this? Like, get this one going, change this one up. I've seen this one too many times, but it's like, dude, that one's just pumping. Like, why? If the fountain works, dude, don't start like go messing with the pipes. Like, just keep it going.
100%.
You want to obviously satisfy the client as much as you can, but at the end of the day, they're paying for your expertise. And if doing something like that could be a detriment or kind of hamstring the campaign, you're going to kind of advise against it. But
yeah, we have rules in our agency. Like if a client wants XYZ and we can't talk them off the ledge, we're like, hey, this is not something we do. We don't do this. And if the client's insistent, we ditch the client. It's really that simple. There are some things that we know to be so detrimental to performance that if the client's insistent on doing that and we can't convince them, we part ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some things that we've just tested so many times over and over and over again, and the result's always the same thing. We're just like, dude, we can't do that. I know it's not in your interest. I know you saw it on a TikTok video yesterday, but I promise it's not a good idea. And so we have some hard rules on that. You know, they're nothing super crazy. And but yeah, you know, we see a lot of shiny object syndrome in what we do. I know you do too.
Yeah.
You know, because there's all sorts of different trends. But I'm very much of, you know, don't break what's not broke. Don't try to fix what's not broken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't need to patch holes in a boat that's still afloat. You need to fix holes on a boat, the one that's sinking or has sunk, you know.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with you. So our process for like doing ads, like is very similar to yours. You try a bunch of different things and you go, okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. This is working kind of, let's tweak it a bit. And you just kind of keep optimizing. Once you dial in the one that's working though, leave it alone. Like that First Coast painting ad that I'm talking about. I mean, we monitor it constantly because we want to know if something goes awry, but we haven't had to actually fundamentally change that thing in years, like small tweaks here and there, but nothing big in several years. You know what I mean? Once we dialed it in, it's like, dude, it's just working. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
I think, and I know you know this, a big difference with Facebook ads is your creative is on the front end. That is the ad. For us, the ads are actually really short. It's just text-based ads. The creative is on the landing page.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we have to be creative. We're just creative in different spots. Your creative is at the front, and then it's just like a form or a chat or whatever you want to do. And then for us, it's a very simple ad with keyword-driven stuff, keyword targeting. All the creative, the stuff that actually converts people is on the landing page. That's where the website part kicks in.
100%.
I was on a call with someone earlier today, and he's running Google ads, and this website is just not a really good example.
Booty cheeks.
It's gnarly. And he's like, yeah, I'm getting great results. And I'm like, how do you know? And I was asking him how he's measuring. And he didn't even have measuring in place. I'm like, so you're guessing that you think it's working right, but you actually aren't measuring at all. He wasn't even measuring like acquisitions. Like he wasn't even measuring like CPA or anything like that. There's no like measurement in place for measuring the outcome of ads. He's just throwing money. I got client. Great. But did they come from that? They come from this. You know, if you can't tell them, you're guessing, you know. A big error I see a lot of people make, especially buyers, is don't know how to make things properly.
100%. Dude, this has been awesome, Micah. Honestly, man, you're such a legend. And I vouch for Micah, guys. Search Click Growth, they're a serious company. They got amazing ethics. They do amazing work and they get amazing results for the clients. So I highly recommend you reach out to Micah. And if people want to reach out, they can do so how?
Searchclickgrow.com, or you can just search me on Facebook, Micha McLain. Either way works.
Yeah, searchclickgrow.com, baby. That's it. So, Micah, dude, you're an absolute legend, man. This has been an absolute pleasure. And keep crushing and keep doing what you're doing, man. I've been hearing nothing but amazing things.
And you too, man. I love working on clients with you, man. I know it's really great knowing that we're both, you know, similar ethics and both very high quality. All the clients that we're serving together, we know they're all crushing it in every front they can. And I love it. So you keep doing the great work you're doing too, my man. Appreciate it.
The dream team, baby. Awesome, brother.
Yeah,
have a good one. Talk to you. Bye.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.